We're going on to part 2, and I didn't write it correctly. It's scarcity with an I, so I corrected over here. So let's continue. And in this part 2, I want to explain why compensation, when it comes to our downgraded sexuality, is an abomination, and why these abominations hinder us from actually living as healthy human beings. So, I've already explained this in the previous video. Check it one out if you haven't seen it yet. So here you have scarcity, yeah, written well. Because there's scarcity, now there's a need for compensation. And in the compensation you have the haves and the haves not. So let me go with, hold on, believers. Yes, that's how I want it. So, in this scarcity thinking, which is collective thing, the urge for compensation grows. And everyone wants to win. This thing. To win simply means to be included. Included. Anyway. The human being has a strong need to be included. So when it comes down to sexuality, the focus becomes the physical outworking of sexuality, which is the lowest expression of it. But that's what the goal becomes, to become part of the haves or the haves not. And you can see this in the world, where you have the alpha male over here, where you have the beta male, and you have more Greek classifications for it. Or here you may have the woman in a wedlock, a wedlocked female. Here you have the single woman. So you have those classifications that the world makes just to promote the compensation that the world is offering. Because the world can only offer short-term compensation for the fact that human beings are not operating in their abundant state that God intended us to walk in. And what happens in the world is that you are frightened with images of have-nots. So you think that to be part of the haves means that you're safe, because safe is what human beings want. That's why you want to be included. So it goes like this. Let me give an example. You grow up in a, let's say you're in high school. This is an example that may be more relatable to us. And you're a guy. And see Jeffrey over there. He is the alpha in high school. He's in a football club. And he's dating all the hot girls. I'm just using common language here. Now what's going on here? Jeffrey is seen as the haves. The one with sex appeal and with sexual attraction. And other males perceive themselves as the haves not. So now they begin to idolize Jeffrey, who's seen as the haves, to become like Jeffrey. What all those men in those high school forget is that they're all magnetic beings as males. Why aren't they aware of this? First of all, they've been miseducated by the world system. That's one thing. Secondly, they have almost no self-worth. So the guy that operates a little bit in his natural masculinity and they see the consequences, they begin to idolize that guy. So Jeffrey now is overwhelmed by all those other dudes thinking that he's all that. And he's thinking, no, I'm just as fresh as all of you. And then you have the females who idolize Jeffrey because they are reminded of their earthly fathers were faulty. And now you see Jeffrey and they think, Jeffrey is young, Jeffrey has this magnetic pull, they recognize masculine heat coming from him, so they think he is the compensation for the type of father figure they never had. So their attraction to Jeffrey is foremost emotional and then physical. That's how it is with females anyway, but in this case, that's what's going on. So now you will have women in high school competing for Jeffrey. They all want to sleep with him. Why? Because they think by sleeping with him, they're participating in his stability, in his confidence. Because it's the confidence that attracted them to him. But what they don't realize is that by them all haunting on Jeffrey like that, they're bringing ruin on Jeffrey. And Jeffrey is mistaken. He will perceive all these females haunting on him as something good, while it's not. In this case, the compensation works. Because the compensation is a story that people believe. Not that the story has any reality to it, but the story becomes real with real consequences because people believe in the story. If all those guys in high school realize that they're all magnetic beings as males, it would all be over. But as long as the myth of scarcity is believed by the population, the urge for compensation will continue. Now, as believers, this whole thing of compensation shouldn't even exist with us. Why? Because we walk by faith. And when you walk by faith, the outworking is holiness, which is life in abundance. So if you're supposed to have abundance, then no such thing as compensation should exist. Because the seeking for compensation is something worldly for those who operate on the fear frequency. So, how did this urge for compensation manifest in daily life? Now, I kind of explained already with an example from high school. You have guys walking around with expensive watches, expensive clothes. That's to compensate the lack of self-worth they have on the inside. In the streets, you have guys trying to shoot on one another. Violence becomes their compensation for the fact that they have issues they don't know how to deal with. Even in the corporate world, you will see this. You have guys wearing a suit and they have this business attitude telling you that their time is precious, this and that. Why? That sternness, that distancing from others is perceived as powerful by society, and they use that to compensate for the fact that they feel vulnerable on the inside. Because if they allow themselves to be known as vulnerable creatures, nobody will believe in them anymore as businessmen. So that's not a form of compensation. With women, compensation can happen in various ways. It can happen in the sense that a woman becomes asexual, in the sense that she avoids sexuality and sex as much as possible. Now, no human being out there is asexual because we're all sexual beings, but we can become asexual in behavior. And you have women becoming like that because they can't handle their natural vulnerability. They're frightened of it. And then you have women who want to control others sexually to feel relieved. Those end up using demonic assistance, and they're the ones becoming witches. Then you have women who just get along with whatever society expects from them. If society expects them to wear short skirts and to walk like a hoe, they will do it. Not because they are hoes, but they just do what society wants so they will feel included. And if society expects them to wear long dresses, they will do it just so that they're not scolded by society. So, this looking for compensation is what the world's about. Yes, the world's all about seeking compensation. We believers should not be involved in this. What we call the dating we're seeing today is not about seeking compensation. Just think about it. If someone is walking by faith and they know their assignment that they have from Christ, which is to be fruitful on the earth and to multiply and to contribute to the well-being and abundance of everyone on the earth. If they know that that is the purpose why they exist, then they do want someone from the opposite sex, but they only will put up with someone from the opposite sex that will contribute to this purpose. Because their mind is on Christ. But someone who is misinformed about what walking by faith is, or they refuse to walk by faith because it's too scary for them, they're automatically operating on this level over here. So, if they are not on here, they're on this. So if people refuse to walk by faith because they think it's too scary, but they prefer the predictability of the cycles of the world, then they are here. And when they are here, they want someone else from the opposite sex, and sometimes even from the same sex as them, to relieve them from this assignment. This assignment is what we live for. This assignment is why we exist. But for those that don't want to operate in their purpose because they think it's too scary, because you need to admit that you're vulnerable and you can't do it on your own, and you need others, so being humble is part of the assignment. And for some people that's too frightening. They prefer the pride of holding on to cycles. So if that's what they're doing, then they only are looking for others to compensate for their lack of abundance. And that's why you have people out there, they're looking for Mr. Right, or they're looking for a good man, or they're looking for the right woman. What are they actually looking for? They're looking for the perfect compensation where they never have to face themselves anymore, ever again. Lord have mercy. That is never going to happen. Ever. But that's what the world is believing. That's why sexual relationships, well, if you can call those things relationships in the world, it's all about the compensation. Now, when you go to a brothel, you can clearly see its compensation. You have men who think low of themselves, who see themselves as failures, or who have other issues going on, and they just want a few minutes of physical intensity with a female to forget about everything, and they pay a lot for it. Well, it used to be paying a lot. Today you also have places where they pay only a few euros or a few dollars, but okay, it happens. Or if you go to a club where women tend to give it up very easy, they hope that they will capture a guy that will bypass all their issues and embrace them in all their frills. Okay, that's another type of compensation. But in some places you can clearly see the compensation for what it is. It's too obvious, too in your face. And then there are places where the compensation is hidden. So you don't think it's compensation, you actually think, well, they went to the government, they have a marriage license, they went to the church building where they had a ceremony where they said I do, they made marriage vows. So because they appear at ease, you think that's not compensation. It is. Why? The woman is compensated for the fact that she doesn't have to worry about being rejected by the community because she's part of the community now, and the man also gets a type of honor by the community for being willing to stay with only one woman. So both receive compensation, and because he's now a married man, he is also partially protected by the community. So if that guy has people from the past that wants to hurt him, now he's a married man, his family-in-law will stand up for him. And if the people that want to harm him or want to take him out, when they realize that he's married, they'll be taken out the married man, they will be affecting the whole community, and now they will have to deal with the vengeance of society. So there is compensation, but the compensation is not of obvious. Now, to us human beings, the one in a wedlock, that's a common station by society, is perceived as good and clean. And the one going to a whorehouse or some club to just spread their legs or just go into anything that moves, that one we see as filthy, as dirty. But let me tell you, both are. The one has obvious consequences and the other has less intense consequences, but it's both sin. It's both seeking relief. Because in both cases, they're not doing the will of the Heavenly Father. They're not walking by faith, and there's no abundance manifesting. Why? Because there's no faith, and they're going in a cycle. So, sexual filth is the consequence when we don't operate in life and abundance as Christ intended us to be. And to operate in life and abundance, you must be in movement, in active obedience to the Holy Spirit. What human beings often prefer is to be actively involved in patterns and cycles. That's why you have religion. That's why you have cults. That's why you have military regimes and all of that, because worldly people, they cling on to cycles that much. God wants us to be free, to glorify Him on the earth, in the here and now. Are you willing to let go? Be at peace.